The Super Cards Draft Challenge just came out and it features 11 super cards, so today we're gonna rank them from worst to best and explain how to use them and what synergize with them properly. Let's go. Before we start, 0% of my viewers are actually subscribed, so if you're watching this and you enjoy it, please consider subscribing. Thank you so much. Okay, worst evolution on the list is probably the Barbarian Launcher. It is basically a mortar, but it doesn't do damage when it impacts. And yeah, if it connects to tower, it can actually kill the entire tower pretty fast. It shoots way faster than a mortar, but it is really hard to make it connect, and it is more expensive than a mortar, so I think all of the other super cards are just better. Second worst card is the Santa Gider, which drops presents that give you special effects like Clone, Heal, Rage and Invisibility. The invisibility is kinda cool, but the presents are left behind the Gider and only when it connects they actually affect him. So it is pretty hard to activate, it costs more than a normal Gider and it is really not worth it. Then we've got the Super Lava Hound, which when it dies drops 2 mini Lava Hounds and it explodes, dealing a lot of damage. But it is just too much expensive and I don't think it is really worth it. Especially because it is a draft, so you can not really synergize the other cards and you need a really specific deck to make it work. Next we've got the Wizard Trio. They basically start shooting immediately when deployed, but it is still 7 elixir and they are just normal wizards. They do not have special effects, so there are better cards in this, but they can still be effective. Then we've got the Super Witch, which has the combined effect of a normal witch, a night witch and a mother witch, and she's pretty cool, she's pretty tanky, she can survive lightning, so it is really effective, but you still need a win condition because she is pretty easily taken care of when it reaches the other side of the field. Up next we got the Super Ice Golem, which when dies it freezes the entire arena. It is pretty versatile, but if you do not have another win condition it is pretty useless. Party Goblin Hut, which is basically an X-bow that can even target hair, and when it dies it drops a Goblin Gang and the Goblin from the Goblin Cage. So it is really good offensively. When it dies it can pretty much clear up any counterattack that your opponents want to make, so really good overall, and it is a pretty cheap card so you can cycle it kinda fast. Up next we got the Super Archers, which are really versatile because you can cycle them fast. They can survive a fireball, so they are really tanky, and they shoot tornadoes when they fire, and they get a little bit of knockbacks, so they are really hard to kill and they can stay on board for a really long time, but you still need a win condition to play around it. Now we are in the top 3, and I think these 3 cards can win the game on their own. The first one is the Super Magic Archer. I suggest to play it offensively because it dies to poison and lightning, or fireball and any other spell, but when played offensively it can turn any troops that it hits into one of your troops, which gives you so much free damage, and it is really hard to counter. Up next we got the Super Rocket, which has a giant array of damage and turn anything targeted by it into a goblin. It can even one-shot an entire golem. It is really OP on defense, it can get you a lot of damage on offense, but you gotta remember that it kills your own troops too, so don't play an Ogre Rider and then throw the rocket because it is gonna be turned into a goblin. The Super Mini Pekka is still at first place because it actually gives heal to himself. He drops pancakes whenever he kills someone and every like few seconds to heal himself up, and it literally one-shots anything it goes in touch with, like even the King Tower. It's crazy because even if your opponent has a good counter to it, you really need to use swarmy troops against him, and if you do not have any you just lose, and even if you do you can just pressure on both lanes and it is just so hard to counter on his own, and for that reason it is gonna be at first place.